Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm doing authors who hated movie adaptations of their books. Now, normally when an author gives away the movie rights to their books, you usually think that they would be thrilled to do this. However, not usually. As usually the author has a very visual idea of what they want the books to look like. Some authors are more vocal about this than others. So in this video, I'm going to go over authors who publicly said which movie adaptations of their books they hated. So yeah, let's get into the video. Roald Dahl was an English children's author that wrote books between 1943 and 1984. His most well-known books include Matilda, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and James and the Giant Peach. While Dahl did not live to see many of his books be made into movies, he did see a couple, and almost all of them he had hated. The first one that he hated was actually the first one made of a book that he wrote, that being Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, starring Gene Wilder in 1971. Main reason Dahl hated this book was because he felt Gene Wilder was a huge miscast in the part, which many people have agreed he's usually dead wrong about that. He also hated it because they didn't use his original screenplay that he wrote, as one of the conditions he had for this book to be made into a movie is that it had to be, he had to write the screenplay, which they ended up removing because it just felt like the book in script form. However, Dahl had hated this book so much that he refused to grant the rights to a sequel book, Charlie and the Great Glass Elevator. However, this wasn't the only book to movie adaptation that Dahl hated. The Witches from 1990, he had also hated, mainly because he had felt it didn't focus enough on the book plot and focus on its own plot. With these two infamous cases being Dahl hating them, it is possible that many of the works that were made after his death, these include Matilda on Broadway, the Matilda movie with Mara Wilson, the James and the Giant Peach movie, almost all the stuff that we got after his death in 1990 could have never happened. The only reason it did happen was because of his wife. So yeah, moving on to the next author. Stephen King is considered the king of horror writing, as many of his books that he has written has been made into movies. While most of the adaptations King has enjoyed, there was one that he has been the most vocal about that he hated, which arguably is his most famous work. The piece that I'm talking about is the 1980 movie of The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick, starring Jack Nicholson. The main reason King had hated it was mainly because due to how long his books are, making him into a movie is very hard because you have to condense the plot down to a certain time frame. Because of this, the movie did not end up going to the book, with King eventually stating the movie as a big, beautiful Cadillac with no engine inside. King had hated this adaptation so much that in 1997 he wrote his own script for a mini-series of The Shining starring Steven Weber. However, this wasn't the first time Kubrick had pissed off another author. Anthony Burgess was an author best known for writing his book A Clockwork Orange, mainly showing the facts of psychology as schizophrenia. In 1977, Stanley Kubrick had made a movie adaptation of Burgess' novel. However, Burgess ended up hating the movie mainly because Kubrick cut out the book's final chapter. So much so that when Burgess wrote the stage play of A Clockwork Orange, he intentionally added a character that was supposed to look like Stanley Kubrick being booted off the stage. Truman Capote was an American author best known for his book Breakfast at Tiffany's. The 1963 movie was mainly hated by Capote, mainly because he didn't like Audrey Hepburn as Holly Gayetti. Because in his mind, the only actress that he could see playing her was Marilyn Monroe. So yeah, moving on. Michael Ende was a British author best known for writing his dark children's fantasy novel, The Never-Ending Story. However, Michael Endes did not like the way that the movie was presented, so much so that before it was released, he had asked to have his name removed from the credits, which many people didn't actually know that this was even based on a book. Like, even me, I watched this movie a lot when I was younger. I did not know that this was based on a book. After Endes' death in 1995, his film rights have been strict on the book, mainly because he hated this adaptation so much that there have been very few remakes or television reboots or film remakes of this book, mainly because he hated this adaptation so much. So yeah, moving on. Richard Matheson is a American author best known for his book I Am Legend. The book has been adapted 3 times into a Hollywood motion picture, most famous of which being the latest one starring Will Smith. And every time this book has been adapted, Richard Matheson has hated every adaptation. Going on to state, I don't know why Hollywood keeps making movies based on my work if they can't even film it in the way that I wrote it. P.L. Travers was a British author best known for her fantasy children's book Mary Poppins. However, the most famous adaptation of this being the 1964 Disney film was one of the most heated and intense film productions of all time. As Miss Travers, the author, hated Walt Disney's animated movies and did not want the book to be an animated movie or a musical. And this even included segments. So during the scene where they're in the chalk painting, she hated that because because they used animation rather than live action. While the film Saving Mr. Banks, starring Tom Hanks and Emma Thompson, best explains the movie, it did not go into full depth. As any attempt to Disneyfy her novel, she declined, with many scenes having to be rewritten multiple times because she just put out no, sometimes underlined or even circled several times. Things eventually got so heated that when she was eventually coming to the studio, Walt Disney decided to take his family down to his beach house in Tampa, Florida, as he did not want to be in the same vicinity as her at all times. But if there's one author I can't think of that has hated his adaptations more than anything, that is Alan Moore. Alan Moore is an American author who has basically hated every movie or TV show adaptation of his books. Mainly because he only sold the rights to them because he believed that they would never be made. While the list is very long and complicated, the one that most people are familiar with is V for Vendetta. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, turn on notifications, send me future videos. I love you all so much, and bye.